In this video, I'm going to be analyzing 3 key stats: winners, unforced errors, and forced errors, to determine what kind of stats should you be focusing on when you are playing your match. And more importantly, what stats do you want to be comparing yourselves to for your specific level? Today we've got some great players and dummies for this exercise in the form of Deron, Gino, my top subscriber, and Taish, who you've seen already on this channel before. One of the things that they wanted me to look at after this match was to understand what were the stats for each of them in terms of these 3 things. And I think it's quite nice because what's great about this match is that we've got 4 players with 3 different types of Playtomic levels. So we've got Deron serving over there, who's currently playing with high 3.8. Taish in white is playing with a 5. Myself and Gino are pretty even, we're about a 4.3 each. So between the 4 of us, we're pretty well matched team. So as this game kind of goes on, I'm really going to be trying to understand what are the things that each person should be focusing on. I'll provide some stats at the end of each set, and also just to show you at whatever level you are at the moment, what do you need to do to get to the next level. So if you want to skip directly to the stats, I'll provide the chapters in the match summary below, and you can just go straight to those chapters. I've got 2 of them, and that could give you all the stats you need. If you want to watch the game in full, you can also just play it, and I won't provide too much talking. I think the only thing I want to tell you is that Gino and I were 5-3 down, and we managed to come back and win the set 7-5. I think that's one of the big things that I'm going to focus on the next couple of videos, is how do you convert points and sets, because I think I struggle a lot with that at the moment, is getting to winning positions, and then winning the actual set becomes almost impossible. So if you are like me and want to understand how to do that, please watch a couple of the next videos, because I've got 2 videos where I was both 5-3 up and 5-2 up and couldn't close out the match, and I've got some suggestions in terms of how you can do that when you next play. moment of truth, and some of the stats coming out of the first set. So we obviously piled a lot on Deron. Taish is very strong, so we pushed a lot of our points towards Deron, and he hit most of the unforced errors. If you see the winners, I was probably, funny enough, net for net in terms of unforced errors and winners. And then just in terms of forced errors, you can just see how strong Taish is in terms of being a level 5. He's not making a lot of forced errors on either side. So I think what you want to take away from this is that from Deron's side, if you're 3.8 moving to a 4, I think the key here is that you want to get a little bit more on your winners. If you're a Gino and a Scott, or 4.3, somewhere around there, closing down a little bit on your unforced areas is crucial, because we kind of want to be where Taish is. But interesting enough, even where Taish is, I think he's more of a right-sided player, so for him, not a lot of big winners. So potentially for him, it could be quite useful to actually start trying to hit more winners. But I mean, very impressed with his stats, that most of the time he's extremely solid, which meant that a lot of our balls went to Deron, and he had to field a lot of the points, and unfortunately with that comes obviously unforced errors. So let's see how the second set goes, and what the results are. So a great set for Duran and Taish. They closed down a lot on their error rate. So if you saw here, Duran improved his unforced errors, kept it very tidy. Slightly more errors on our side. My winner count came down. So as the balls get a little bit softer for me, I find that it's a little bit more difficult to pop them out. So I have to rely on winning the points from just grinding it out. You can see there that a lot of that right-hand battle between Duran and Gino, it looked like Duran was winning that more often than not. Taish's stats stayed pretty consistent across the board. And you can just see that dropping that unforced error rate from Duran just meant that he was he's the rest of the team, him and Taish, were just in a better position to win the set. Yeah, so this is a nice one to just show you what happens. Unfortunately, the rest of the match, we didn't have time to close it out. We actually ran out of time. The points were just so long, so we struggled to actually close out. But yeah, hopefully that's helped you just understand what kind of things you need to work on in terms of percentage play. Hopefully the unforced errors, you just see how closing out on unforced errors and becoming a little bit more aggressive in your play, especially if you're a right-sided player. I think Duran is a nice example of how he moved from with it and losing more often than not in the first set. Now he's doing much better on the second set. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens in this third set. It was just unfortunate we didn't manage to close it out. We ended up finishing the set only at 2-1. So yeah, I think the next video I'll just talk to how to close out matches and what are the things that we need to work on. And I'll throw in some, if you think stats are important and you want to see more stats, please let me know. And then I'll put it in the next video.